Studios, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac. We've got a salvaged series in Milwaukee, plenty of injuries and call-ups to discuss, and some managerial decisions to break down. There's a lot to get into. Let's dig in. Well, it's Wednesday. You're probably hearing this Thursday or Friday, and we had the final game of a 3-game series in Milwaukee. And like I mentioned on the intro, we've salvaged the series. After 2 pretty awful losses in game 1 and 2, we looked much better today and put up a 6-3 win with Michael Wacha on the mound. So let's look at each of these games. When we were last recording, I mentioned we were in the middle of game 1. It was definitely not looking good. We ended up coming back a little bit, but that was the Dakota Hudson start and the Yelich 3-home run game. So Hudson only went 3 2/3 innings, gave up 6 earned runs. Myers came in, only pitched 2/3 of an inning, 3 earned runs. He took the loss after the Cardinals actually tied it 6-6. And actually Myers got hurt in that game and was going to be put on the DL, which we'll talk about later. There were some bright spots. Goldie, DeYoung, and Ozuna each homered, and Fowler had 2 hits, which was nice. As we mentioned, that was the Yelich 3-home run game, and the middle of his reign of terror against the Cardinals. Game 2 was similar, an 8-4 loss with our starter Jack Flaherty only going 2 2/3 innings, giving up 5 earned runs. Gallegos came in, 2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, but he did have 5 strikeouts. And that was also the game that Ryan Helsley made his debut against the reigning MVP of all people with runners on. And he promptly gave up a homer to Yelich in that game. But he did have 1 earned run and 4 strikeouts, 2 1/3 innings pitched. So actually not a terrible outing by him. And he even got ahead 0-2 on Yelich before giving up that 91-mile-an-hour hanger. So an overall good outing by Helsley. I'm sure he's going to get more opportunities, and excited to see what he's able to do. He's a fireballer for us. Also in that game, Ozuna hit another home run. Fowler also had 2 hits again, and Molina had 2 hits as well. So good to see those guys kind of coming around. Molina had a painfully slow start to the year and has really been looking much more like himself lately. And good to see Fowler with these multi-hit games. So game 3 was today, as we mentioned. This was a 6-3 win. Wacha went 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. So very good, effective outing for him. Not so good was Miller with 1 inning pitched, gave up an earned run, and did have 1 strikeout. Not a terrible outing, but not a clean inning either. We're going to get into a little more on Andrew Miller here in a bit. Ozuna and Carp both homered. That's 4 games in a row for Ozuna. He's got a total of 8 home runs on the year. So he's definitely on a tear. Of course, makes me look like kind of an idiot after having an entire or half an episode dedicated to complaining about Ozuna and why fans don't like him. He's definitely been making me eat my words, which I'll take it. That's what we want to see from him. Goldschmidt and Wong both had doubles. We finally held Yelich in check. Only had 1 hit, 1 RBI on that hit. He had a walk and a strikeout. So Yelich didn't beat us in this game, which was good. DeYoung had 4 hits, Wong with 3 hits, and Wieters and Goldschmidt both with 2 hits. So definitely good to see multiple guys contributing today. Day game after a night, getaway day. So good to see the Cardinals kind of get some self-respect and not get swept by the Brewers up there. So after that series, the standings are as follows. Milwaukee is still in first place at 12-7. Pittsburgh, who just finished up a late 10th inning win, is now 10-6. St. Louis is third at 10-8. The Cubs are 8-9, and Cincinnati is 5-12, well behind everybody else. At this point, it's not they're not that far behind. They're only 2 or 3 wins behind some of these guys. But so about what we have been seeing, Pittsburgh kind of leapfrogged there, but we got Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Chicago, Cincinnati. Very neck and neck. One series could swing things one way or the other. So it's still early. We're not really checking the standings yet, but just wanted to point out it can be a little, not confusing, but hard to keep track when we've got these head-to-head matchups. So it would have been much worse, so to speak, if we had been swept by the Brewers. So taking 1 out of 3 was definitely good to end that series on a positive note. All right. So one of the things I wanted to get into was the use of Andrew Miller, or the lack of use of Andrew Miller. He did pitch today, 1 inning pitched. He did give up a double to a right-handed batter, then a strikeout to a right-handed batter, a single to Yelich, a lefty, and then a line out to Grandal, who's a switch hitter, batting righty, and then a foul out to Moustakas, another lefty. So he got to see the whole inning. He faced righties and lefties. I believe that first righty who came in was pinch hitting, so he was scheduled to face a lefty, and then they pinch hit with a righty. So, they brought him in the right situation. He had some of the critical lefties coming up. It wasn't, a huge run differential there. So definitely a meaningful situation. So good to see him get out of that. You'd like to see it a little cleaner. He did give up the run on the double and the single. So not a great outing, not terrible, but interesting in that it has been 3 days since we've seen Miller. So he had 2 off days. He last pitched on Sunday, the 14th. Today was Wednesday, the 17th. So what's interesting about that is there were many situations for him to pitch on those Monday and Tuesday games. Bunch of lefties in the lineup, bunch of critical situations, and we didn't see Andrew Miller. So I thought, I was asking myself and other people, what's the deal? Why are we not bringing Miller in when we clearly need to? Our righties are getting tagged by these left-handed hitters. He's supposedly able to go multiple innings, which we haven't seen much of that, if any. I'm not sure. So I kind of wondered, was he hurt? Have they lost confidence in him? I know that it seemed like they were trying to build confidence in himself with some of his outings, but he pitched Sunday only 1/3 of an inning, had a single, a strikeout, and a walk, and he was pulled for Hicks. So he did get that strikeout in there, but that was sandwiched between a single and a walk. So another not clean outing, only got the 1 out. And then again, it was 3 days off or 2 days of rest. Before that, he pitched the previous Thursday on the 11th. And that was a pretty good outing. 1 inning pitched, 3 strikeouts with a single mixed in there. So he struck out the side and gave up the 1 hit. So that would be a pretty effective outing. But then we didn't see him for, he had the Friday and Saturday off, then pitched Sunday, and then had Monday and Tuesday off. So before that, he had not had multiple days off between appearances. There was one other time where he did, but it was the rain out. The home series against San Diego. So every other time he has only had 1 day off between appearances. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that not only was he getting multiple days off, but he was missing out on crucial, lefty reliever situations. So some of those days off could have been just the situations, the score, the matchups. But like I said, especially this week in the Milwaukee series, there were clear opportunities to bring him in to face guys like Yelich and Moustakas. So, I don't know. What does that mean? I mean, he hasn't been great, but he has had a couple awful outings, and I think that has contributed to his appearances. But some of those awful outings were early on when he wasn't getting these extra days off. So maybe that's what it is. They figure, let's give him some more rest to recover. He'll come back out. But the best outing he had was 2 outings ago where he had struck out the side. Then they gave him 2 days off. He didn't look so good. 2 more days off, and he just looked okay. So anyway, I'm not necessarily trying to go anywhere with that topic or that point. Just interesting in how Schilt is deciding to use Miller. It seems like there's maybe a lack of confidence in his stuff. So we'll see how that plays out, what the situations will call for, what he looks like when he does get the call. and how often they go to him. He needs to be used out of our pen more often than every 3 days. That's not going to cut it throughout the season. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, we've had, that's really the only thing I wanted to get into as far as strategy and managerial decisions. I know I kind of teased that at the beginning, but that was really the only one on this episode. I do want to break down, like I've said for a while now, I want to break down some of Shilt's managerial decisions and kind of get into the mind of Mike Shildt and how has he been utilizing pitchers and pinch hitters and giving guys days off and all that stuff. So there's some positive things in there. There's some negative things in there. So it'll be interesting to kind of break that down, but that'll be for a whole other episode. All right. We have had several injuries recently, sort of starting with Harrison Bader, though he didn't actually go on the DL until today. But Bader had the hamstring tightness, and they made it sound like it wasn't that big a deal. They were just being cautious. He probably could have played if needed. But today they put him on the 10-day IL, the injured list, not the DL anymore. So I think that was retroactive, but I actually didn't read it that way. I just kind of assumed. So we'll see when he's actually eligible to come back. I think it's retroactive to when he first got hurt. And then Tyler O'Neill and Mike Myers both got hurt in the same game. O'Neill, if you recall, was playing center because Bader was out and had an opportunity to gun a guy out at home. And he uncorked a huge throw, which went nowhere near the target and clearly had a hurt elbow at that point. So they're saying he hurt it on the throw. I have to kind of wonder if he was feeling some tightness or something before that. I could see him hurting it on the throw if it kind of went where it was going, but he just kind of hurt it in the middle of that throw. Usually when the ball doesn't go anywhere near where it was being aimed, in my mind, that's kind of indicates that they were hurt before and didn't want to feel that pain that they knew was coming and they weren't able to aim it where they wanted to. When they don't know it's coming is when the ball tends to go where it should, but then they're hurt afterwards. Anyway, who knows? But he is also on the 10-day IL, and they don't seem as concerned with him. It's an ulnar injury, what do they call it? I forget. There's a bizarre name for it, bullixation or something. But they're saying it would be more of a concern for a pitcher, obviously, but a position player, they just need to monitor it and see what the issue is. And then Mike Myers, on the other hand, does have a more concerning issue. He had a tingling sensation or numbness under his armpit, which they're classifying as shoulder discomfort and or strained lat. So I don't think he's had a full exam yet. They don't know the grade of the strain yet, but a strained lat for a pitcher can cause him to miss a lot of time. That can linger for a season. So we'll see how bad that is. He also was getting rocked that outing and didn't look very good. So obviously he was dealing with some issues and then addressed it afterwards. So that's not, it's not good. We had to make some moves. That's our center fielder's out. Our backup center fielder is now out. So what did they do? They called up Jairo Munoz, who had been up for the Mexico series and had just been sent back down. He's back up. They called up Gallegos. Again, he was up for the Mexico series, was sent back down. And then they called up Ryan Helsley. So Munoz, Gallegos, and Helsley are called up, and Drew Robinson was sent down to make room. Robinson hasn't really done much so far. He hasn't had many opportunities at the big league level. He had an okay spring, but didn't make the club right away. Did get the call up. Didn't get to play much. When he did, he was striking out. I have to wonder if his bizarre home run celebrations in the dugout had anything to do with him being sent down. I kind of doubt it, but he did look pretty odd with his clapping and hopping around and whatever. Anyway, so, a lot of changes on that Memphis highway. Guys going back and forth. But Munoz did have a double, I believe, today. And Gallegos and Helsley should be effective. Gallegos looked much better in his outing last night. And Helsley, I think, is going to get some more chances here. So excited to see what they can do. And I'm sure Drew Robinson will be back up at some point. And he will get to contribute. But All right, we have a 9-game homestand coming up against the Mets, the Brewers, and the Reds. The Mets are 10-8 right now, so they have the same record as us. I would say they're underachieving based on their expectations. They made a lot of moves in the offseason, brought in some good players, relievers, Cano. So they're probably not doing as well as they and their fans thought they would, but I think that means they're a dangerous team with the potential to do more, kind of like the Cardinals. We have not achieved the level of success this year so far that we thought we would, but we are a dangerous team that can put up a lot of runs. So should be an interesting matchup. We're going to see DeGrom and Syndergaard in that 3-game series. So some high caliber, high octane pitchers coming in to St. Louis. So should be fun to watch. All right, that's pretty much all I've got. It was kind of a quick episode this time. Just kind of wanted to recap that Brewers series, which we already talked a little bit about in the last episode. So overall, just kind of my overall thoughts so far on the season, just above 500, just above the Cubs, just behind Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. It's going to be kind of neck and neck, I think, for a long time. But like I mentioned last time, we have got to find a way to get left-handed hitters out, particularly left-handed Milwaukee hitters. I think the Cubs are going to give us similar issues with their left-handed hitters. We've got to get our starters lasting longer through games. This is going to tear apart the bullpen if guys keep having to come in the 3rd, 4th, 5th inning. You just can't sustain that kind of effort from a bullpen. You're going to be trading guys back and forth to Memphis all season long if you keep going through these arms like that. So we've got to get some starters to do at least what Waka did today, which was 6 innings. And hopefully the rest of the guys, Waino and Waka have been able to go that long, but we need to get the rest of these starters being more efficient. It starts with getting ahead in the count. Flaherty really struggled with that the other night. He was behind on almost everybody, got his pitch count up way early, had to groove some fastballs in there when he was behind, and just did not have any success. So they need to be, they need to pitch better, starters and relievers. Schilt has basically said as much, with the struggles against the Brewers and Yelich in particular. He said, we basically just need to pitch better, and he's not wrong. So there's some strategy in there regarding matchups and, when you leave a guy in and when you take him out and all that, and who you bring in. But basically, it's on these pitchers to pitch better. So I don't know if it's just early season struggles or it's the approach. Maybe it's the pitching coach. Maybe it's the pitches that Yachty's calling. I think it's really just comes down to execution and aggressiveness. I think they need to be more aggressive on the inside, which Brad Thompson discussed several times on the broadcasts over the last few days. They need to be more aggressive on getting these guys off the plate, and then they can go away. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to this series coming up with the Mets. Then I'm not looking forward to the Brewers after that. I'm just kind of tired of facing them. It'll be nice to see them in St. Louis, but kind of tired of the Brewers at this point. And then we got the Reds coming into town, which should be fun to see more than just the 2-game series against them. So, all right, that's all I got. Nice and short and sweet this time. So I appreciate you listening. Feel free to get a hold of the show at BFIBs Almanac on Twitter and Instagram, bfibsalmanac@gmail.com, and on YouTube, BFIBs Almanac Podcast. So again, thanks for listening, and until next time, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac.